so lovely to have you on our podcast. This is one of the first podcast episodes that we've done. You're one of our first guests.
It's exciting, isn't it?
I'm so excited. Yeah. Beyond the Hashtag is our new content strategy piece that we're putting out of Naturally Social. It's a podcast. It's all about social media beyond hashtags and likes and followers, and actually gives us an opportunity to talk to people about like the real purpose of social. And I know that's something that you and I have very, very, very similar beliefs and stuff about. Yeah, so tell us about Second Mountain Comms. Mm-hmm. Tell us your business journey. Tell us how you got here.
Okay, I'll give you a short journey. So I've been in PR for 15 years. Yes, 15th anniversary this year, incredibly.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I worked in-house for a few years. I was agency side for about a decade. Start of 2020, COVID hit. I had a senior agency role in Bath. Unfortunately, COVID happened. Redundancies happened. So I kind of found myself without a job during lockdown, which is not the nicest of positions to find myself. Strange times, not times that I'm very keen to revisit, to be honest, those few months. But whilst I had time off, I kind of thought, I think this might be an opportunity. I think this is the time. For years I've been grappling in my various comms roles. I've always been drawn towards businesses that had a real purpose. I always found that whatever sector I worked in, whether it was tech or food and drink or healthcare, whatever it may be, I was always really drawn to the founders and people who had that original story and why they set up what they set up and what they were looking to do in others to make a difference. And I thought, I think there's something there. I think actually that's a specialism. Yeah. To actually really focus and tighten what I do and just focus totally on purpose. So that's what I did. I launched Second Mountain Communications in August 2020, very much with a focus of helping good people do good. So it's about working specifically with ethical and purpose-driven companies and charities, amplifying their stories and really kind of expelling the benefits of what they're doing and the difference they're making in the world. And you launch these things, especially when you're on your own, and you don't know how they're going to land. Yeah. And I was so relieved when I launched and it got met with a really strong reception. So people really got the proposition. I think the timing resonated. I think there was a lot of us had opportunity in that first lockdown to actually really take stock and think about what was important, and it was like society just needed a moment to kind of pause, breathe. Everything had got pretty intense, and between Trump and Brexit, and there's a lot of kind of polarising things that have happened in a few years, and then I think COVID happened. And we had this brief period where everyone came together, and it felt like we were one kind of society again for a brief, lovely window of time. And in a way, I think it was a perfect time. If I was ever going to set up a business, it was that window of time, I think, because it was such a surreal period. That's such
a positive message, actually, because I'm sure I think there's been lots of people setting up businesses since the pandemic who've taken that last couple of years to realise what matters to them, understand where they want to be, to take their own destinies into their own hands for many people, let's say, or give things a go. But actually, I don't think a lot of people would have said it was a great time to start a business during the pandemic. So it's great that it's a positive story that's come out of it for you, and I'm sure there's many other people out there that have done equally well. So total props and congratulations.
Thank you. I think what it is, I think it was a complete level of a pandemic from starting a business, because overnight it was fine for me to run a business from my house.
Yeah.
And I was having international conference calls with people all around the world, but from my house. Yeah. And 5 years ago, that would have felt probably quite amateur.
Yes.
So I've done that new business journey, but lots of people do it starting in a back bedroom or starting in a garage or somewhere. But I've done it at a time when everyone was working out of their bedroom to a dining room, so actually, kind of perfect storm, really. Tough times. Let's hope we never ever have to experience anything like that again as a society. But for me personally, definitely silver lining.
That's cool. And congratulations, because we were just talking about some some very good news you've had this week. You've been shortlisted for both the UK Small Awards and the CIPR Excellence Awards.
Yes.
You're up for the Mission Possible category for the Small Awards and the Independent PR Practitioner of the Year for CIPR Excellence Awards. So well done.
Thank you. No, it's really exciting. Really exciting. Thrilled.
That's great news. What does it mean to you to be shortlisted in awards? Do you think it's a good thing to go for as a business?
Yes, I think it's recognition of the work you've done. It's that peer-to-peer level recognition that actually your work has value.
Yeah.
I think awards in the last few years have become far more results-based, so actually it's far harder to fudge an entry just on superlatives. It's actually about what was the impact, what did you set out to do, what was your objectives, and what did you achieve. I've judged quite a few industry awards, and it's all about actually, did people deliver with hard metrics and numbers on what they set out to do at the start.
Yeah.
So I think, and also what award submissions do is they allow you to kind of crystallise what you've done, reflect back. I mean, business, you know, I know this, I've been in business less than 2 years myself, and it's gone so fast. The years just rattle by, and actually to look back at what did I do in 2021 and to put it on paper what you're proud of, it's really satisfying. So
it is.
I think I feel 2 years in to have these kind of award shortlistings, it's just really kind of gratifying at this stage.
It's great recognition. You should be very proud.
Thank you.
So what is it that you've enjoyed the most over the last 18 years of running a business?
18 months. Well, 18 years. Feels like
18 months. Sorry, it's 18 years.
So I have enjoyed, I think the number one thing is the clients I've got to work with and having the ability to kind of choose who to work with, if that makes sense to a degree, as in I kind of went out to market with this kind of helping good people do good, and actually what that's done is that's attracted really good people and genuinely nice, authentic, like yourself, purpose-driven people with good hearts to them that are actually trying to do much more than just make money.
Yes.
And so actually working with those people, helping them to kind of amplify their stories, you know, playing a role in moving their business forward, I've just found immensely satisfying.
Good.
I think that's the number one thing, and then on a personal level, being able to align work with family. I always found it nigh on impossible to feel like I was being a good dad and a good husband. And I just felt like I was juggling way too many balls, and you know, leaving the house at 7:30 in the morning, getting home at 7 at night. If I was lucky, I might get to do bedtime and a bit of story time for 5 minutes. Now I, you know, take the kids to school, pick them up from school, cook dinners, you know, I'm just involved. I'm there to play. But in amongst that, I think my work's probably the strongest creative it's been, because now I'm working at times that work for me, as in I often don't start writing until 11 or half 11 in the morning, because I've realised I'm not a morning person. I'm just not. I'm someone who needs to have a walk first, or needs to have a coffee and a read first, and I can now work at times that suit me rather than at times that maybe are that conventional office 9 to 5, which I don't think has ever really worked for me, to be honest.
We talk about that in the team actually here at Naturally Social, and say and encourage everybody to think about when do you work best and plan your days around that. So if you feel you're the most creative in the morning, do all your creative work then as soon as you get in. If you feel you're more creative in the afternoon or come 11 o'clock, get all your admin bits in at the front. You know, that way you're managing your days so much better, and it works for you, and you get the most enjoyment out of it, and the company gets the most back.
Absolutely.
So what have you enjoyed the least?
I would probably say, we were talking about this off air a little while ago, probably the sheer amount of emails you get as someone who owns a business.
Emails.
It's a whole new level when you're there as a director of a company, just the sheer amount of speculative stuff you get sent, and just that feeling that you have to respond to everyone and you have to present your business in the right light, but actually there are only so many hours in the day to do that. I think I'm getting a bit like with my use of social media, which we'll come on to. I think I'm putting good rules in place, I think, to get better at managing that, but it constantly feels like just this email and admin overwhelm. Probably, email and admin combined. There's a lot of admin involved in running the business. I'm not a numbers person. I'm not that organised. I've had to become incredibly organised. I've had to learn how to use technology and how to get my IT infrastructure in place and all this stuff, which isn't my strong suit. I'm someone who writes for a living. But I think I've kind of got the foundations in now.
That's good.
And hopefully the painful bits out of the way.
And I'd say from lessons that I've learned, and I've talked about this with a few of my other guests, that actually you can get those things sorted early on, then you're in a really good position for successful growth over the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, admin and emails. God.
Admin, emails, accountancy.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, let's move on then. You said to social media. What part does it play in Second Mountain Comms and the journey of your company growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think social has been massive for me really throughout my career. I think when I started in 2007, I was an early adopter of Facebook, so maybe late 2006. I think I first got Facebook. 2009, I was on Twitter, so I was quite early with both of them, and it helped me a huge amount in my early comms roles, because actually I was working on platforms that a lot of people didn't really quite get. And I think I really latched onto Twitter early on.
Cool.
I thought this platform is incredible. It's this kind of two-way discourse with brands and people, and it's just an amazing platform. And LinkedIn as well. So the kind of myriad of those platforms early on in my career were invaluable, I think, to learn that knowledge. As time has gone on, I found that I've gravitated towards certain platforms much more. So LinkedIn, I think, has been my main thing for me, both personally and professionally.
Cool.
Some platforms, such as Twitter, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with. I have a bit of a wariness against some platforms in terms of the good side versus the bad side, and I'm quite careful with my use. But in terms of Second Mountain, I mean, we've launched a brand 18 months ago, and we're essentially a virtual brand, and we've managed to kind of get national and international clients, and that's really been by using social media as a shop window. I think that's what is really exciting for people now, is you can do so much.
Yeah.
If you're really targeted with your content, and you're really focused with the channels you're using.
Yeah. And
you use them with genuine purpose.
Yeah.
And trying to put content out there that's valuable, and not just trying to get likes for likes' sake.
Yeah.
I think you can do a lot with a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not on social anywhere near as much as I probably should be from a brand level, because I'm running it all on myself, and clients always take priority. I do enough, I think, in terms of Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, but there's a lot more I could do. Yeah,
but the fact that you've been able to get to where you are doing what you're doing at a certain amount, at least you're consistent, and I think that's a really key point, isn't it? It's about being consistent and having consistency when it comes to your posting plans and preparation.
Absolutely.
Because then you're removing the pressure off yourself to constantly be out there and be out there on all channels. I think it's a really, really easy to fall down that hole quickly when you start a company.
What I don't do much is reactive social. So it's pre-planned really what I do for myself, not for my clients.
Yeah.
So I will develop. I have a content plan whereby I'll do various kind of weekly wisdom things on Instagram. So nice, inspiring quotes and a bit of context to that, mixed in with company news, mixed with client success, mixed in with a bit of culture stuff. That's quite easy to plan. And it's just allocating that time, because from day one it was important to me that there was a brand. It wasn't me, it was a brand. So it's been about getting Second Mountain off the ground, not myself. And it's just trying to have that consistency so that people get to know, actually, if I follow this person, this is what I'm going to get from them.
Nice.
I've done a lot of reactive social media in the past for myself and for clients, and I just think you need to exercise some caution with being too quick to post sometimes until you have full view of facts. I think it's good for some of the platforms like Twitter are starting to lock down a bit more on, do you want to retweet this? Do you want to read the article first? Do you know
where this comes from? Have you seen the original place of this content?
A little bit more of trying to actually dispel that dissemination of fake news. And
totally.
I sound like Trump there, don't I? But just trying to be a bit more, because you can have things can spiral very, very quickly on social, and that's what scares me a bit. I think this whole kind of cancel culture, how quickly people can kind of
jump onto it and say and be vilified for it. Totally.
So I'm quite reticent about adding my voice to anything like that, really.
Do you think the social platforms themselves, like Twitter and Facebook, etc., do you think they made those choices to change the way they operate, to pick out fake news because they genuinely wanted to, or do you think that was done through pressure?
They've done it because they've got to survive. I mean, you've seen it with Facebook. You've seen they've had to pivot so many times now to combat dwindling numbers and also just apathy for a platform.
Yeah.
Twitter, I know numerous people who've turned away from that platform in droves because they can't handle the negativity.
Yeah.
All of these platforms have to keep evolving before they either become redundant or they become misused.
Yeah.
I think these platforms are. I mean, I'd love to be an eye on kind of hear these conversations in Silicon Valley and know whether there is any harm
somebody
to it,
going, genuinely, we need to do.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are good people in all those organisations. I've
Yeah.
no doubt, but I'm sure most of it is because they're under pressure. And
Yeah.
they're listed companies, and they need to actually
do
deliver
something
return
and show
engagement and user numbers.
Exactly. And I always think that us as communicators using those channels, we're in a bit of a like rock and a hard place. It's like, well, we need to use these channels because all these people are here. But actually, particularly for us, if we are, our kind of mission is to make a difference to the communities that we live in and work with using our skills. And this whole notion of social media for social good, but if we're choosing to use platforms that perhaps haven't got the most purpose-driven ways of working, like we show up on those platforms by being responsible with the audiences that we can interact with. What kind of advice have you got for people who are looking to go on social media, have a purpose-driven organisation? What's the best way for them to be using social?
I think there's a couple of factors. First is be really, really clear about what you want to do, and then secondly, be really clear about what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So when I started out with Second Mountain, I mean, I'm very, very opinionated on my own personal social channels,
Okay.
And I have been for many years. But when I started out with Second Mountain, I was very clear, this is not going to be any platform for negativity.
Cool.
This is about encouraging positivity in the world, and this is about actually helping good people.
Yeah.
And so it wouldn't fit the brand of what I was trying to do as a business to be critical of anyone, and that's not what I want, and that's not really what I want from the world anymore. So I've been very, very clear about, as a business, what I don't do on social, and I think anyone that's starting out should be really honest with themselves about where do I want to be seen, how do I, what am I using it for?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be seen by, and what do I want to get out there, and stick to that, and not be caught, because it's so easy to just get caught down the rabbit hole with social, and suddenly it encourages you to write in a way. I mean, there's kind of a term, keyboard warrior, isn't there? It encourages you to, it doesn't show your best side, because it's so easy to get caught up on the bandwagon with trending topics and add your voice, especially in the current political climate.
Yeah.
And you just have to take a step back and breathe sometimes and go,
I don't want to do that.
But in the same turn, it's also incredible how social can bring about real change.
Yeah.
And actually, things like our current political parties, a political party has never been challenged to the degree that the current one is.
Exactly.
And so much about voices and social media, people saying, no, I do not agree with corruption, no, I will not stand for this.
Yeah.
20 years ago, if a party had behaved like that, you wouldn't have heard any of this.
Yeah.
So it's really powerful that you and I can actually directly communicate with the Prime Minister and say, no, we won't stand for this. And
also the awareness, for me, the power of social media is that anywhere in the world you can find out about what's happening anywhere else in the world. So all of a sudden, we don't have to just rely on TV adverts from charities like Oxfam, let's say, but actually we can find content directly from people who live in third world countries. Let's look what's happening in the Ukraine at the moment, and we can be the one that decides what we see and how we find it, and therefore inform our own truths about it.
And Ukraine's a great point in terms of the power of social, because actually you saw that groundswell in several weeks of our UK government and the communicators within them saying, we are not really going to do anything to help, and then an entire nation on social saying, no.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
No, actually, we're not going to be the only country in Europe that doesn't help.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get this narrative from the government saying, oh, now you're going to open our homes and we're going to support this.
Yeah.
And that's entirely driven by people online saying no.
And how powerful is that?
And that's incredibly moving and powerful. Yeah.
Smaller charities being able to drive so much more financial support from supporters for causes that people wouldn't even know anything about.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I think Facebook in particular does really well is the tools they give small companies and small charities to be able to do their work that often are free of charge.
Yes.
And I think that's a really positive thing.
Yeah.
You touched upon your personal relationship with social media.
Yep.
Are you across everything? Do you just stick to one channel? Like, what do you do?
I don't think I'm maybe as down with the kids as I probably should be. I'm not TikToking. No, I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn and Instagram.
Yeah.
Really. Facebook for professional communicators is essential.
Yeah.
You have to have a Facebook presence to be able to run company pages.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be otherwise.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know how many of these platforms I was on if I wasn't involved in professional communications.
Yes.
Truthfully, I'm not sure I'd have any relationship with social media personally.
Yeah.
If I didn't do this for a living, but I do, and it's so ingrained, and it's been so ingrained in me for 15 years.
Yeah.
It is just life.
Yeah.
What I really try and do is limit my use of them and be intentional.
That's good.
Some days I do really well on that. Some days I fall massively, and I find I'm just scrolling at 10 o'clock at night through Instagram feeds.
Yeah.
And I kick myself and say, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
What's this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so hard. This has been our life for decade and a half.
And
but I really try and say, don't get drawn into this conversation. You don't need to contribute to everything.
Like I said, it's that intentionalness and being present and self-aware, mindful. I guess is another way to put it in terms of picking up your phone and going, hang on. I mean, I find when I get home, as soon as I get home, I haven't looked at my phone. I don't look at my phones all day. Any of my personal social media. And the first thing I do as soon as I get home, if I sit down with a glass of wine or whatever, and it's literally like app hopping from one app to the next, scrolling.
Yeah.
And actually, what that ends up, it leads to so much more overwhelm.
It does.
Because, particularly for my personal feed on LinkedIn, I was so close to posting yesterday, going like, am I the only one who feels like completely like a failure when I open up LinkedIn these days and see all this content from other business owners and entrepreneurs going like, wow, look at us, wow, look at me, oh, we're so amazing. Like, maybe we should start something and start posting like Friday fail. This is how I've
absolutely. I mean, that's one thing I've been really encouraged to. The last 2 years before the pandemic, you never saw content like that on LinkedIn.
No,
especially it was just
you really didn't.
I've won an award, I've been promoted, etc. Loads more of people kind of breaking the walls down and saying, actually, I'm really struggling with this. I mean, I think that's the thing you just have to constantly remember, is that social media is not a window into the reality of one's life, and perception isn't reality, and it's very easy to put across a stance and to look like you're behaving in one way, or your business is fantastic, but you're projecting. I think there's a lot to be said for authenticity on social. And for inviting those, I think actually it'd be very empowering if you were on there saying, I've had a really hard day today, because then what you're doing is opening a conversation with people. And what you're also doing is you're kind of saying it's fine to struggle. And but then what you have to also remember is you also need to kind of be there to respond to people. Because what that might do, and I've found this a few times when I've talked about anxiety, I've talked about things like that on social, it's opened up doors. Other people have got in touch with me and said, oh, actually, this really resonated with me. And then I've had separate Zoom calls and online conversations with people to talk about things, which has been lovely. But it's also, you have to make sure you've got the bandwidth to do that. Both in time and emotionally.
Mentally and emotionally,
So I think when you put yourself out there, you are inviting it. It's the same for a brand. If you start putting yourself out there on social with a purpose, you are inviting two-way conversation. And if you're not ready for that two-way conversation, then don't do it. Because
actually that two-way conversation is really important, and it's how you'll deliver that change, really, isn't it? Because even just from a tactical point of view, conversation on any channel is really super important. But from a reputational perspective, if you want to be showing up in a space to be a thought leader or be an expert or drive something, a specific change, you have to be prepared to get something back as well, and have the time to put in those responses and that community management.
I think the days of broadcasting on social is
done. It's done.
Everyone's been on social. Everyone said, "This is who we are." And it's, if you're either on there to have a conversation or just don't bother.
100%. We talked about authenticity actually as well before we started recording. It's a big passion point for both of us. No BS, as we call it. Tell us a little bit more about your stance with this.
I just have a real. You and I are the same. I mean, I just kind of virtue signalling, greenwashing, just this kind of people jumping on any bandwagon, and just trying to own it for that brief period of time because it's trendy.
Yes.
You saw a lot of that with BLM very quickly 2 years ago.
Yep.
A lot of kind of celebrities and brands that just suddenly that was what their brand was all about.
Yeah.
You've seen it a lot with diversity. You see it a lot of kind of with key areas for a brief window of time. You saw it with mental health during the pandemic from businesses that maybe had never really had a space in that before, and they were very quiet afterwards. I just have a real problem with kind of people just moving from one thing to the next because it's in the zeitgeist now.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas actually operating with one wider purpose, I'm just really keen, I know you and I share the same view on this just with businesses. What's your one thing you're trying to do?
Yeah.
What's your mission? Your genuine mission. Why did you set this up?
Yeah. Because that's
and
okay.
What are you trying to do? You don't have to do everything. What's the one thing you're trying to do? And try and make the world slightly better by doing one thing really well, and just trying to look outward a bit more.
Yeah. And also feel confident about I think pivoting is good and developing is good. And actually, where I look at it, if I talk to a lot of companies and that inspires them to change their business model, I've had clients in the past where when I've started working with them, they've had no CSR strategy at all. Yeah. They've had no intention of being ethically minded whatsoever. And as we've educated them and, being quite forceful in saying, no, we're not going to be promoting over salesy content online. We need to find your story. Here's a hook, here's an idea, here's a suggestion. A year later, they've absorbed everything they could from us, taken everything they can, and they've completely changed our direction and they're flying. And that's great. Yeah. I think that if we've made an impact, that's got to be seen as a positive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But there are so many people who also need to feel don't jump onto that trend and that bandwagon, understand what it is that you're setting out to do and do that and do it well. Yeah. People who are jumping on this whole ethical, purpose-driven bandwagon who don't necessarily understand it or it's not at their core, I think will very quickly be found out and it will end up causing, having a backlash, I think.
Well, we're seeing it, aren't we?
Yeah, already.
We're seeing it with the likes of Brewdog. We're seeing with what you project in the public eye and the virtue signalling and the reality of what's clearly been discovered about culture and way of doing things. And I think that's the thing, that the world is too open now. That, unless you can live and breed a culture through and through, that will get out. If that's not authentic, if that's not the real experience of your brand that's lived by employees and people that engage with you, you will be discovered. So either don't put yourself up on that pedestal in the first place if you can't deliver on it, or actually try and behave
to it
in an ethical fashion and be truthful.
And social media ties all that together because people you can't control employees. You can't control customers. You can't control fellow partners or whatever it is, or contacts that you've made in the past. You can't control their messaging, so you have to show up authentically. And commit to that.
And I think some of that, and that comes from being honest as well. That's what we were saying earlier. I mean, the authentic isn't saying I'm perfect. Isn't saying that my business is brilliant at everything. It's being honest about where your strengths are. Yeah. I do that with my own business. I have a page on my site which says, always happy to have a conversation, but if I don't think I'm the right partner for you, I'll tell you at the start and I'll try and pass you on to someone else. Yeah. I've turned business down because the chemistry fit hasn't been right. I've walked away from clients because it hasn't felt right. Yeah. Because everything in business is it's a relationship, really. Definitely. And it's a two-way relationship, and it always should be.
I think it's super important that everybody shows up authentically, wherever they are, however they show. And I saw an article, I think it was yesterday actually, and I'll try and find the link and add it into the podcast notes somewhere afterwards. But it was like 10 companies you thought were ethical were actually owned by the least ethical organisations. Okay. And that's really eye-opening because for me it shows that you need to really do your due diligence when looking at and researching companies, because I might say one thing here, but if you dig deep down, like what's the supply chain like? Yeah. Who are they using to run their socials? Who are they packaging? All that sort of stuff needs to all be unpicked.
And I don't know if you saw a couple of weeks ago with the whole P&O ferries.
No, remind me about
disaster.
this.
So I spotted this as a wonderful Twitter spot, but basically in the wake of obviously what they did with all their employees overnight and kind of sacking everyone without any notice.
Oh no!
Doing no communications whatsoever. It was awful. Their values page on their website is just filled with body copy. It's got no, like Laura Ipsum. They haven't even got a statement about what they stand for. And it was just one of those things that really showed actually how they've behaved
Oh dear.
at a mass corporate level. It's so
Yeah.
indicative that they haven't even given any consideration in a company that large with what is our reason for being
Yes.
and what sets us apart.
And what's
clearly-
genuine, yeah.
Clearly very little.
And then it shows how social media has just completely lit a fire, probably,
Absolutely. So,
underneath that issue.
yeah, so I think, you know...
Terrible reputation management.
Absolutely. Just, I think the whole instance with them over the last month has probably been one of the biggest PR fails I've ever seen. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love the fails. We're going to have to wrap it up there, though.
Okay.
I've loved talking to you
too.
today. Thank you so much for your time. I think you and I both know we could sit here and talk forever, but we better not.
No.
So thanks for joining us, and everybody else, make sure you follow the next episode. Subscribe.